As this type of hospital expo are meant to have people on the same platform, those who take the service of medical equipment, medical services, as well as those who sell it in the market, those who are manufacturers, traders, and ultimately the end user, that means the hospital. Because each and every services are meant for the service of patients. May it be a OPD patient, may it be an indoor patient, but ultimately our aim is to have a team which caters service to the end user. And what are the changes, as Dr. Sarkar has rightly told, that we are going through revolution in different phases in last decade and in present decade as well. Because we want to cater our services to the utmost standard level, the requirement of the present day, as well as in a cost effectiveness. One of the main feature which surrounds all the requirements is cost effectiveness and how to manage it. May it be for the case of manufacturer, may it be for the hospitals, and ultimately may it be the pocket of the patients. Just we are passing through phases in our personal life also. Everyone belongs to a family, may it be a nuclear, may it be a joint family. But we are going to manage it at our home level. Say, for example, a husband, wife, and 2 children are there in a nuclear family. There is a source of income which is more or less assumed or fixed at the month end, and we are going to distribute our revenue in a cost-effective way. We are going to distribute that we have got a recurring expenses. Say, for example, a person earns 1 lakh rupees in a month. His 60,000 is allocated for his regular expenses. But the rest 40,000, he divides it into different proposals or different schemes which is going to help him in a long term or a assumed requirement at a short term level also. The 60,000 out of 1 lakh rupees is our regular expenses, and you divide your expenses into a certain components, that this is for the regular school fees, this is my electricity bill, this is my grocery bill, this is my textile expenditure. In this way we divide it. And rest 40,000 we decide on our requirement in future. In short, that if this is a fate which every person experiences in his own life, the business, may it be a hospital, may it be a manufacturer, may it be a trader, it is equally divided on the same rhythm. But if the nuclear family becomes a larger one, then it becomes a joint. It becomes a joint family having an association of so many people around there. There, say for example, father and mother are there, the son along with their wife and their children. It's a bigger size of a nuclear family staying together for the common interest. And there, say for example, the father manages the budgetary output, mother looks after the household work, and each and every member of the family are the contributor or executor of the phenomenon which is happening throughout the month in the family. Then in a joint family, there is a division of work. That means some persons are looking for a specialized job. Same is the phenomenon with a hospital. If it is a low-grade hospital having a bed capacity of 20 to 50 or maybe up to 70, 80, then a single person who may be a proprietor or partner, looks after the job. Then he has to look after all the affairs related with the, starting from the building, regular affair, implementation, and the execution, ultimately the revenue generation. Because until and unless you think about the revenue generation and its expenditure in different forms, and if you are not well planned for this job, then your process becomes a faulty one and you may land up in a crisis. Same is the feature with manufacturers, same is the feature with traders also. Then if we manage a hospital, which is a requirement of the day, that how to manage a hospital in a low budget, because every hospital cannot be a corporate hospital. Sometimes we have to maintain some hospitals which are owned by some people, may it be in a proprietor or partnership firm, but they have to budget it. And what are the factors which can have a budgetary outlook of their problem or of their project as a whole? Then if you consider that what are the conceptual phases of any upcoming commercial organization? Because I'm repeatedly telling that may it be a manufacturer, may it be a trader, or may it be an organization like hospital. Then the rhythms remain same everywhere. And the main features are, one is you have to plan what you are going to do, and it has to be documented properly. Next is where from the resource is coming, the resource channelization. Third is managing the resources, and last is the controlling of different resources which you are going to utilize. Then planning and documentation, as Dr. Sarkar has rightly told, that they are based on certain points. Then what is the place where you are working or where you are operating? Then you must have a geographical orientation of the space and the requirement of the space. What plan you are going to have? What is the economical size of the plan? What is who are the players in that place? And what is their stakeholding in the place? And what economical size your industry or your organization is having? Then where from the resource is coming? And fund and resource management, and all these factors somehow or other was explained by Dr. Sarkar. Then one of the important factors is resource organization. How you are organizing your resources, and this is mainly based on 5M. That is the manpower, machines, method, materials, and ultimately the money. Then if you plan an organization, if you plan to start a business, then your orientation will be like that what are the manpowers required for, what is the level of semi-skilled or skilled manpower, in what way you are going to recruit them, what is the level of utilization of those manpower. These are the factors which has to be considered before operation or before planning or during the planning period. Next is your methods. Because once you start the operation, you are coming across so many problems that it is an operational crisis, it is a maintenance crisis. But if you plan it very early stage, that these are the crises or these are the methods I am going to imply during the operation of my business. That means if, suppose you are going to start a hospital, Then you need some sort of software to regularize or to making everything in a streamlined fashion. Then apart from that, you need that how my manpower is going to be utilized, how I can supervise the things. Likewise, there are some licenses. This is part of the methods. Then machines. It is not a uniform procedure because suppose, as Dr. Sarkar was telling, that you need a PET scan. Someone has installed a PET scan and you are thinking that you are going to install a PET scan. Is it worth viable? Whether it's a reasonable buy at that point of time? Then machine purchase. Machine, whenever it is purchased, it bears a CMC cost or AMC cost after the warranty period is over. Until unless you plan it, you chalk it, that what is the exact requirement of the machines. Maybe that some machine you require right now, some machine you require later on. But during the period of initiation of a business, if you start buying everything, because you have got some money in your hand, and whoever comes, you are going to buy that. Without thinking the pros and cons of the business and the requirement of the machine. Maybe that somewhere you need automation. But if you start a small business, then and in that locality, if your volume of the business is not so high, then you may have to run only by manual method of those machines who are helpful in manual operation, those are viable. But if you go for the standards, buying a automation, and your workload is not that high, your consciousness level is not that high, then it becomes a troublesome factor in the way of operation, and ultimately you may land up in crisis. Then other is very important, the money part. What money is required to start or to initiate your business, and in what phases this is required? Because you need initiation by a certain amount of money, which has to be calculated very minutely. Next part comes that how you are going to utilize your money. Maybe that you have got certain, say for example, 10 lakh rupees, and you know your total requirement is 20 lakh rupees. Then 10 lakh rupees is in your hand, and another 20 lakh rupees, another 10 lakh rupees you require. You require for initiation of the business. Then another 10 lakh you have to borrow from somewhere. Where to borrow, how to borrow, what is the rate of interest, all these factors has to be considered. Otherwise, this can create a budgetary loss. And after 6 months, when you think that you have got the equipment, you have got the infrastructure, but you need working capital as well. Because once you start a business, it's not that the manpower requirement and recurring expenses which you are incurring in due course of time is coming through your revenue generation. It doesn't happen. Neither for a manufacturer, nor for a trader, and not for a hospital as well. Then everywhere you have to think that what is the capital which is required as a working capital. And if you run short of working capital, then you have to compromise with your recurring expenses. That means somewhere, somehow you are compromising with your business. And then initial investment of yours can be underutilized. And that can create a severe pressure, severe stress on the business organization as a whole. Then this type of management, that how you are managing your resources, that is very important. Managing through developing, one of the important factor is projected PLBS and cash flow. But whatever you are generating revenue, what is the cash flow? Because cash flow doesn't depend what is the cash you are collecting at the month end. Maybe that you are having for hospital, suppose we are doing some insurance business. That means that I have got a business but the money is not in my hand. I'm getting it after 2-3 months. For a trader or manufacturer, they are going to give a sight, which is generally called, that you are selling a product, but you are getting back your money after a certain period of time. Then that can lead to cash shortage. You have got a business, but your cash flow is always less than what business you have done. And you have to wait for a certain period of time. Then during that period, this cash flow management is very important. There should be strong informal financial control. Until and unless you have a strong financial control and you cannot plan it, then you are landing up in a very crisis situation. That's why your financials should have better control until and unless you control it minutely. If a single person opens up a unit, he has to look after all these things. The manufacturer has to look after the purchase, production, stock, delivery, and recovery of the money. For the hospital also, if it is managed by a single owner, then he has to manage that where from the purchase should come, what is the mode of payment for the purchase, what is the salary expenditure, what is the electricity expenditure, what is the other infrastructural cost which is going to come in his way for business operation. And ultimately, what is the revenue generation and what is the cash flow. These all factors are very much pertinent. And one is your budgeting. One is long-term, one is short-term budgeting. The long-term budgeting controls, or it is called capital budgeting. And short-term budgeting is, as I mentioned, is your recurring expenses or working capital. There are some parameters. If you escalate your business to a certain height, then say for example, someone is a private limited company. They have got a certain equity, then capital equity ratio. Then comes different parameters that return on capital equipment, your working turnover ratio, then your compound aggregated annual growth. What is your growth rate? And until unless you see it, you assume it, and you work on it, then you are somehow deficient in planning your business. And there are so many other parameters which can be calculated during the business, before initiation of the business, and ultimately it helps for a steady growth or achievement of your targets. Then how do you control such resources? The success of any business depends upon controlled deployment, cost of fund, that where the fund is coming. And if it is a borrowed fund, even if it is your fund, say for example, you have put 10 lakh rupees or 50 lakh rupees in a business. Had it been somewhere in a fixed deposit, then you could have earned 6% as on date, 5% to 6%. And if you are borrowing it, suppose you are borrowing a commercial interest rate of around 10 to 12% because now repo rate has come up. It was previously 4, now it is 4.9. And bankers take a spread on it. Then now the commercial loan is available around 10 or 10 plus. Then 50% of your business is by borrowed loan from some banker, which invites you for an interest rate of around 10% or more. And you calculate your interest rate as 6% because if you deposit somewhere, then you are getting 6%. Then on an average, it comes to between 8 and 9%. Your financial load as a business interest rate comes to 8 to 9% of your business money involved. Then until you calculate that what is the cost of the fund, because you have to pay the EMI. If you are having a CC, then you are paying the interest. And if it is a term loan, then you are getting the EMI as well. Then where from this fund come and how to manage this fund? Until and unless you do it or you calculate it, then sometimes you are lagging behind in paying your EMI, then your civil is being affected. If you need further loan from any banker, then your civil is affected. And the banker hesitates in giving you the loan. Then you have to calculate everything in course of your journey through operation of the business. Then it's a working capital management, because whatever is involved in your business is very important thing is working capital. Because you have to pay your salary at the month end on a fixed date, you have to pay electricity on a fixed date, you have to pay the TDS in a fixed rate, quarterly you have to pay the advance tax, that is a fixed one. Other some expenses are fixed to your business, and some are variable, because suppose you buy some product as per your consumption, that is again a cost. Then you need some, say for example for a hospital, it's a maintenance. That is an inapparent cost, because you have to clean your hospital, but that doesn't bring you any revenue. If you keep your hospital clean, that is an indirect expenses to your hospital. But if you purchase a material, say for example reagent or X-ray film for equipment, then it is related directly with your revenue generation. But your sweeping, cleaning material or your maintenance team is the indirect expenses, though they are hospital staff, but the material being used is the indirect expenses to your hospital. That is not directly related with your revenue generation. Then all these factors come together, creates your working capital. Because that is a load which is recurring to your hospital, and you have to meet up all these expenses. Then until and unless you manage all these things through your working capital, if you have money in your pocket, then you can pay. Then until and unless you have money in your pocket, somewhere, somehow, your credential is being affected if you are deficient of the money which is required by your recurring expenditure. Then taking effective and control steps to manage negative variances. Somewhere in the business, all the results or all the operational methodology doesn't work as you have assumed before starting it. Somewhere you are calculating that my revenue generation should be such, but you are not getting or you are not collecting revenue. And that gives you a signal in your business that yes, here whatever I was expecting, I am not getting the proper revenue, I am not getting the proper service. And in this way, if you can diagnose these negative variances at the early stage, then somewhere it comes under the limit of controllable issues. That you have, suppose if the hospital authority thinks that I'll have 10 indoor patients in my hospital, and accidentally the patient indoor census says that on an average monthly census was 8, then you are losing the revenue for those 2 patients. Then ultimately you have to review your policy. So where lies the defect? Why my admission is 8 on an average per month? If I don't calculate it, then ultimately my revenue at the month end will go down, but my expenses, indirect expenses, salary expenses are more or less fixed. Then I'll have land up in a negative balance. For these negative variances, you have to be very alert. May it be a corporate, may it be an individual hospital, may it be a manufacturer, may it be a trader. If somehow or some other you don't calculate your factors which are operating in your business, then it is going to be a problem for your operation and for your future growth as well. Then comparing the benchmark points and calculating these variances. Some key factors for your operational improvement are organization can use 4 key concepts to improve the management. Use data. Whatever you have calculated or whatever data comes to you from some other organization, then you have to be very alert that what data I have calculated on my basis of business and what a standard data says. If you find some variation, then you have to rethink that how I can change my datas to a standard limit. Until unless you do that, then again it's a problem for you. And you have to be very alert. This is not a threatening call to each and everyone sitting over there in front of me. But until unless you keep a strict vigilance over these issues, these are going to hamper your growth. These are going to be an issue in your future business. Use data to understand the problem and the target solution. Have analytics, teamwork with units throughout the organization, leadership. Have leaders spend time with the operational team to understand the workfare. Because an organization is a team effort headed by the owner or the director, chairman, as well as the different level hierarchies to serve. Until unless you have a better communication skill, or if you don't sit together with your problems, with your advancement, with your policy, and if you don't make it visible to your down level, then you are not going to achieve your target. A owner is not a person from a separate planet. He is a part of an organization. A owner must think that I am also first a worker for the organization and then the owner, because these team of people have selected me, or by virtue of someone's wishes, or by virtue of the God's grace, I have been in that position. But ultimately, I have to work hand by shoulder with them, and only then the success story of an organization lies. Then recognizing the data on analytics tools are only as good as their impact focus on the ability of the leverage data effectively to assess the intervention. But ultimately, what matters at the day end is, if you don't assess your present day, you can't predict your future. Then be in the present, think that you are working on a principle where everything is important, not only your hard work, but your concept, your perception, your signal to see the negative variances, and some of the positive, optimistic data in your business can give you impetus to move forward. And until and unless you are very vigilant and optimistic in your business, you cannot succeed. We started our journey way back in 2005. I myself being a practitioner. But I had an idea that let us build something which is not meant for me only. Let it be a group of many people around me where you can generate some employment, you can give the services to your area, geographical area, as well as you can cut short your recurring infrastructural costs, because initially we started with only one 30-bedded hospital at Malda. But in a course of 15 years, now Dishari Health Point is spread over throughout the state, having 6 multi-specialty hospitals, 14 diagnostic units, and many more parallel verticals like pharmaceutical verticals. And we are going to expand in the field of health care system in different ways. But now I think that it is not the achievement where is my target. My target is involved the whole society as a whole, where everyone is a contributor to my organization in any form or other. Maybe some is employed, some are my well-wishers, some are my service takers, some vendors are there who help me a lot. And until and unless it is a holistic approach for your business to develop, you cannot achieve a great height because sky is your limit, and if you fly high, then you can see that the world is within your clutches. Thank you very much.